Climate change. It is a term that is heard about more oftentimes than not. But what exactly is climate change? Today, several stakeholders in the agriculture industry met with consultants in the climate change sector to find out how climate change is affecting the agricultural industry in Belize. But before we get into the details, we asked Dr. Ulrich Trotz, the Deputy Director of the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, to tell us just what climate change is.
The climate that we are accustomed to, that this is changing. And the best evidence of that we have is that over the last century and continuing into this century, the global average temperature has been rising. We're living in a warmer world. As a result of that, we see a disruption of our weather patterns. For instance, when you expect rain, you don't get it. When you expect the dry weather, you get rain. And when you get rain, you get very heavy rain. So you see these change in weather patterns. Around the globe, as a result of the warmer world, sea level is rising. So all of our populations living in coastal areas, they are now going to be exposed to all of the problems that you associate with higher seas, especially during storms, when that higher sea translate into a much more severe storm surge, putting our coastal communities at risk. Main contributing factor is the way in which the developed countries, their pattern of development, we talk about what is known as a greenhouse gas. Now, whenever you burn fossil fuel, one of the major products is something called carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. Now, since the Industrial Revolution, we've been piling more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than is normal. It is the reason why we live on this planet, or not on Mars or Venus, is because the atmosphere had just enough CO2, carbon dioxide, to keep us comfortable. Now we're putting more of this stuff as a result of our use of fossil fuel into the atmosphere. And as a result of that, we're getting a warmer world.
Now, as to how the change in the climate is affecting Belize, particularly the agricultural industry, we spoke to the Chief Executive Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Jose Alpuche, who told us about some of the difficulties arising in agriculture, as well as how the ministry plans on addressing these challenges.
We have to change the way we do agriculture, simply because with the impact of climate change, it is becoming much more challenging to conduct agriculture the way we've traditionally done it, which is usually out in the open and rain-fed. At the core of that is drainage and irrigation, a proper drainage and irrigation policy, but also implementation of a drainage and irrigation plan. That requires a lot of work in the sense that we have discovered that we don't even have the detailed topographic map of the country that's required for us to do proper drainage plans and to do a proper irrigation plan. That's being worked on through a project with the FAO and the CDB at the moment. We're working with the Mexicans, we're working with several other agencies to get this work on the way. In addition to that, it's the issue of covered structures, having farmers learn the production of especially high-value items under covered structure, where they could control water, where they could control sunlight, and where they could better control pests. Those three elements are three of the areas that are most affected with the shifting climate. So it's really addressing some of the basics of agriculture, but that have now been significantly amplified with the erratic weather and climate behavior. It is very, very expensive. The adaptation to a more climate resilient agriculture is very expensive indeed. One of the simplest ways to assist farmers is to look at varieties, plant varieties, even livestock varieties that are more resilient to the increasing warm temperature. That's one way. And we've successfully done trials already with beans and corn, and we have to do some more. The beans and corn seeds are now being distributed to farmers, new varieties, and it's working pretty well. So that's one way in which we could have a relatively cost-effective method of disseminating help. Other ways, it's training them in better farming techniques. As I said, water use is key, absolutely key.
While climate change has proven to have quite an impact on the agricultural industry, there are other significant effects that the change in the climate has had on other industries and resources, including tourism and fisheries, as explained by Anne Gordon, who is the National Coordinator for the Climate Change Center in Belize.
Ocean acidification is not a direct impact of climate change, but because of the increase in carbon dioxide, the ocean dissolves carbon dioxide. It is dissolving much more carbon dioxide, and what is happening is that the ocean is becoming more acidic, and because it's becoming more acidic, it will affect any organism that has shell. It will allow it to be brittle, and so those are some of the things that we need to look at. And in the case of the high sea surface temperature, it will cause coral bleaching. And we need those ecosystems for fish production, and those are resources that we need to drive our economy, or that is driving our economy.
And while statistics show that the Caribbean region is responsible for less than 1% of the global contribution of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, it is essential for Belize to do its part in an effort to cushion the effects of climate change. Today's workshop was held at the Belmopan Hotel. Reporting for Love News, I am Renee Trujillo.